Yeah, so tech, machine learning, satellite imagery, all very exciting, all very important. But it won't have the impact that we wanted to have unless we think about it as part of a larger holistic approach. And that's what I want to talk about today. So yeah, I run Fieldy. We have offices in Kampala and Dublin, and we're using satellites and machine learning and vast ground source data to address some of the big issues in agriculture in sub-Saharan Africa. Why is agriculture important? For two very important reasons from a commercial and a sustainable development perspective. Smallholders occupy 60% of the entire population in sub-Saharan Africa, and they grow about 80% of the produce on the continent. And this is obviously really important for food security, but also it's also important internationally from a commercial perspective. Sub-Saharan Africa produces over half of the world's cashew nuts, 70% of the world's cocoa, 10% of the world's cotton, about 12% of the coffee. It's incredibly important from that perspective. Also, from a sustainability perspective, when it comes to food security, the population is about 1.3 billion now, and that's going to bump up to about 2.5 billion by 2050. This is significant growth on a continent that's already struggling a lot with the effects of climate change. The market is also radically increasing in value. It's about the agricultural market is worth about a little over $300 billion, and that's going to triple to almost $1 trillion by 2030. So that's just a few years down the line. And there's some of the big actors are there. Some of the ones that you will know and that you will not know, but are very big players are there, investing in the market, buying, selling, trading, and active. And one of the reasons they are there and the potential for it is that 60% of the world's uncultivated agricultural land is present in sub-Saharan Africa. So that's why lots of these big players are there. And this is a bit of background to agriculture. What we're doing is we're addressing something about the market. It's big, it's important commercially, it's important sustainably, but it's broken. We know the agricultural markets in sub-Saharan Africa are broken. They're broken because we know what demand is like, but we don't really know what supply is like, because smallholders are the ones producing that. Smallholders are producing 80% of the produce, and we don't. They are hard to monitor. They're hard to monitor because they're small. They're hard to monitor because they're unnetworked, and they generally operate off the grid. So we don't know what supply is like, and that results in volatile pricing, in high risk investment, in food insecurity, and that's the problem that we're addressing. And how we're addressing it is we are using satellites, machine learning, and vast ground data to essentially quantify the acreage of strategic crops. So we're quantifying how much cotton, how much sorghum, how much banana is being grown in an area, and then we provide that data to large actors like big ag companies, like government, like UN, and they can use that then to make evidence-based planning. So that's the like I said, machine learning, satellites, and ground data. And I think the data that's coming from the ground is probably one of the biggest bottlenecks that we see. So machine learning, you can't really do a huge amount with it if you can't get that data from the ground to train your models. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges for deploying that at scale across the continent. So we've developed quite an innovative approach, I think, to address that issue. And to address that issue, we have built a free service to monitor smallholder farms at scale across the continent. So any actor, any government, any UN agency, NGO can come to us GPS points for fields and crop type for what's in that field, and we will provide satellite generated statistics as to what's happening crop and weather wise per field per month, entirely for free, entirely without cost, and entirely without scale. So we have about 6 million fields registered on that platform now, and lots of different actors are using it to offer tailored support to these smallholders. And at the same time, we're siphoning off that data entirely with their knowledge to build our models to identify what those crops look like. So that's how we're doing it, and that's what we're doing, and that's why we're doing it. But this isn't a sales pitch. So what I wanted to talk about to get to the meat of it is that this tech, it won't fix our problems. It won't. The tech, the machine learning is not the bottleneck. We like to, with the massive innovation that's happening in satellite imagery, and the huge quantities of data that's being generated across sub-Saharan Africa. Really exciting. The cloud computing, the processing power, the algorithms. It's all there, and it's really great to get excited about it. But it won't save us. The tech won't. It won't. It is part of. It's one small component of a much larger challenge that we need to look at. Unless we think about the tech, unless we think about how we deliver it to the actors, and how these decision makers can use it. How they can appreciate the reliability or the unreliable or the challenges with this type of data that we're generating when it comes to crop forecasting or other machine learning models. It won't really have that great an impact. Data is useless. It's not, unless it's converted into something else that decision makers can use. We've got way too much data now, and especially that's being generated by satellite. And if it's stuck there in that image, or if it's extracted out into one more CSV, we can't. It won't really have any impact. Also, information is useless. We can convert this, and we've been doing this for years as well, and we can generate lots of really useful insights into agriculture and what's happening temporally and across these massive areas. But the real challenge, I think, is converting that into something that decision makers can use. Government actors can look at it and make evidence-based judgments as to how to deploy their resources in the most efficient way, how to offer tailored support to these smallholder farmers to increase the productivity, to increase the yield, to improve food security, to make more, to support more sustainable type of agricultural activities. And we've just seen I've been working in Uganda and East Africa for the past 15 years, and there just has been a lot of attempts to deploy satellite-based, satellite-enhanced analysis to various actors, and we've just seen them arrive and push it out and then fail quite frequently. One that I keep in mind, that I have in my mind now, was a very comprehensive satellite monitoring system that was funded by a European organization to the value of about £6 million, and it was spent a few years building, about 3 years building it in Europe, and then occasionally some of the teams would come back to Uganda and try and deploy it there. And it worked very well technically, but when it came to some of the actors actually utilizing it, and integrating into the processes and decision making, yeah, people weren't able to use it, people weren't able to pay for it, and the project failed. And that was just one more. That's one more machine learning satellite based model on the rubbish heap, essentially. So that's what I wanted to say. I love machine learning. I love satellites, but we need to also think about the much bigger picture in which that is in which they're deployed. So yeah, thanks for your time, and yeah, hopefully you got some interesting questions.
Thank you very much for the talk, Bernard. For the potentially, yeah, very interesting talk, but probably also not agreed with in all aspects. So, I mean, let me first start with maybe the solution that you're working on. So, how do you, I mean, I agree to some extent that data is sort of not useful unless you make a decision out of it in the end, right? But I guess you need more data to make better decisions, potentially. So I think, as you're saying, we need to sort of really create actionable insight and then also turn that into insight. And I was wondering, especially in the sub-Saharan region, there are regions where you have on farms no access to internet at all. So how can you sort of incorporate data from there into your decisions? So ultimately that also gets respected in the end.
Yeah, I think I would push back on the data is useless thing. I think it's data in itself has no value until it becomes a decision. So we do focus a lot on the fact that we need more data, and yeah, but it's not. I don't see it as being yeah. So I don't see it as having any value until it informs a decision. But yeah, when it comes to the off unconnected areas, our model is kind of piggybacking on other organizations who have relationships in those locations. So we're monitoring about 6 million fields in emerging markets in Africa and Asia right now. 4 different organizations who are working and have relationships with these smallholder farmers on the ground and are working with them, providing them with inputs, buying their outputs, providing technical support. So we're providing them with statistics as to what's happening in those fields, and then they can tailor their activities. When it comes to internet connectivity, yeah, that doesn't matter. We don't need it for our model, because the satellites essentially survey the entire continent. The commercial satellites survey it every day. Non-commercial satellites survey it about once a week, a little more than once a week.
Okay, thank you. There's one question that came up by Meraf. So she says she definitely agrees. I'm not sure exactly with what, but potentially with you.
Everything, I think.
So but she asks, can you please give an example for a practical data product?
Yeah, so we've essentially got 2 products. We've got we quantify crop acreage. So we quantify how much barley or sorghum is being grown in an area. So we're working with the UN and some governments across sub-Saharan Africa to quantify growth of a staple crop for food security reasons, so they can have advance warning if there's going to be sufficient produce, and if so, great, and they might need to reduce imports. But if not, then they have plenty of advance warning as to how to plan and prepare for that. The second product we have is those smallholder crop and weather stats, which we generate every month for unlimited fields entirely for free. And that's used in lots of different ways by lots of different types of organizations, for credit profiling, for farmer advisory services, for value chain digitization. Lots of organizations are building on top of our data, adding value to it, selling products as a result of it, and making more informed decisions without having to invest financially or technically in this tech, because yeah, that's part of our entirely free service.